Al Gore won the Nobel Peace Prize about the climate change, making by human and how to counteract this problem. Gore gives some successful conference and make a successful movie called An Inconvenient Truth that make some people build awareness to what is happening now in the world because it was probable that the climate change makes some dangerous conditions for people and attack the principal vulnerable countries. A few years later, a few years later, some scientists thought that the world are going to be ready for drought, waves, early flowering seasons, change in insect migration, and in some investigation, people find the problem about greenhouse effect and affect the principal and developed countries and poor people. The scientists who know about poverty, climate change are because they understand about planetary carbon metabolism. Climate change now in the principal that is the principal topic to talk about the sustainability because for this reason is that the world is losing biodiversity and is winning pollution. The United Nations Conference on Environmental and Development in Rio in 1992 says that the challenge now is at a develop at a forcious rate. And in that few years, people understand how strong are the investigation and learning because the power to structure the language to take an action about develop. Robert Chambers changed the thinking about taking action and developing the learning. The idea today are giving solutions because the crises are increasing and people don't know how to stop it kernel that developing language define word information. 107th government represents the support developing economic environment aided in by a vast array of non-governmental organizations. 15 years later, still look back in the event with some amusement. Was this a critical point in the way the world talk about itself or just another international taking shop?
In the last decade of the 20th century, there was a sea change in the scope and the certification of critics on the environmental dimension of development in practice and the higher profile by given to the environment in the context of social and economic change. So, the critique for the insertion of environment concept into development discussion in the closing decade of the 20th century lies in the first instance with environmentalists from a northern industrial country. The discourse of development, the range of many attaches of sustainable development, reflects the content of the question of the bad development is meant debate about development treaty to lead into a thematic, political, and even moral maze. So, I think most basic development can be taken to make the production a social change that allows people to achieve their human potential. Yet, development remains ambitious and elusive concept, a Trojan horse of a war. Many authors they can be filed by a different user with their own meaning and intention. It's a buzzword. If you know what is the meaning of that, it is also what Howard described as slippery valley word. So they can be used by noisy persons, such as politicians or planet, to help people in the direction they want them to go. So advocated for a particular aim in development or mean to achieve some end, make explicit the use of the transparency of the world to promote the solution. So the other topic is the chain of poverty. Whatever the state of development theory, there is no doubt of the ethical imperative of tackling human poverty. Poverty remains is a massive global outrage. So, the presentation of poverty is one of serious, dramatic, and usually problem in developed countries. It's common to politicians, agencies, academic analysts, and the media. Indeed, such precipitation have long made crisis the commonplace motive of development writing. Africa, for example, is often stereotyped as local, healthy, and very critical situation because it's apparent recurring crisis of war, though disease and famine are analyzed as inseparable from global political economy. So, for instance, the first president of Tanzania coming Africa situation is topical, but is not defined.
The eradication of poverty became a formal international objective at the United Nations Millennium Summit in September 200. 8 million development goals were agreed with 18 targets and 48 indicators as yardsticks for measuring improvement in people's lives. There has been much debate about the reality of the targets led approved to poverty reduction and the adequacy of Millennium Development Goals themselves. Underlying this was a wider recognition of the complexity and multinational nature of poverty at the turn of millennium. The challenge of environment change. Ideas about sustainable development draw on critics of the development process, for example, from populists writing from radical ideas and from more pragmatic critics of development point, appraisal and implement. However, is sustainable development this have been way to rather different concerns about the environmental impact of development, both the cost in terms of lost ecosystems and species and the impact of development action on natural resources for human use. About all environmental critics of development have presented a picture of the third world environmental crisis. Indeed, the notion of global crisis was an important element of environmentalism in 1960s and became a central element in debate about sustainable development. The problem of the environmental impacts of development will be explored in detail in later chapters. I will simply note here that the literature on the global environment development has protake a second global crisis of environment degradation, paralleling that of poverty. The United Nations Environment Programme published annual State of the Environment report on practical issues and carried out a review of the world environment trends, ranging from atmospheric carbon dioxide and desertification to quality of drinking water. Environment and development, one problem, two cultures. The threat of multidimensional global crisis has there before been a key then within debates about sustainability a crisis of development of environment quality and threats to the material benefits supported by natural biochemical process and things. The World Development Report opened with the assertion that the achievement of sustained and equality development remains the greatest challenge facing the human race. By in the 1990s, the point that there are close links between the problem of development and environment had sunk in although despite significant advance. Theoretical understanding of the links has continued to lag behind practical and remotical recognition of the problem.
There are politics about developing the world, soon but powerful actors like Washington, New York, London give support to world. The sustainability concept has been united to develop. In Second World, developing sustainable has become ubiquitous in development. The phrase came from European global thinking after that the United Nations Conference on the Human Environment adopted this idea. The idea of eco-development born in 1980, the Developing Sustainable One Authority as a result in the United Nations Conference on Environment and Development in Rio in 1992. The governments represent support developing economic environment age owned by a vast array of non-governmental organizations.
Second, ecology has been particularly important in thinking about tropical environments and therefore the development of colonial territories and developing countries. There is a close resonance between the questions of scientific understanding and application of that knowledge to both environmental management and development. In some ways, ecology has a science of empire, and there were strategic links between science and politics. Other thing is ecology and tropical development. Ecology has more to offer and simplifies the scientific task of describing vegetation. Ecologists discovered that their science has considerable relevance to economic problems and found a ready audience among officers of the colonial state. The report moved from geology and meteorology through botany and zoology to agriculture, disease, population, and anthropology, and stressed the fact that interrelation between the science had important practical applications. Following the end of the Second World War, institutions were put in place to secure the capacity for science in Africa. Other theme is ecological magnetalism as the idea of development planning began to take root in post-war Africa. Ecology has seen to provide not only invaluable environmental data for planning, but a model for the practice of development itself. Okay, this is a summary of this part of the book. Ideas about sustainable development that emerged in the 1980s had deep roots. Important themes include the development of environmental links, concern for nature preservation, the development of international environmental organizations, the development of the science of ecology, a concern about global population growth, and the development of global scientific networks. The tropics, which were the focus of much of the environmental concern and development actions in the late 20th century, were also important to development of environmental links at much early periods, particularly in the 17th 19th centuries. Nature preservation is important to sustainable development, both as a source of the impulse to balance human needs and human claims of nature, and also because of the role of international conservation organizations in generating the thinking that simulates the formulation of the concept of sustainable development and organizing the meetings where it was first set out. The science of ecology contributes to development and development planning in various ways, particularly in the period following the Second World War. Ecological ideas such as the balance of nature, the concept of the ecosystem, and maximal sustainable yield provide an essential underpinning of concept of sustainable development. The last is the concern about limits to growth in global population. Growth were fundamental to the environmental revolution of the 1970s and provide the background to the emergence of formal statement of the idea of sustainable development. Thanks.